Hey everybody, Justin here from the Ecoculture Reforestation Network and Project Green Drone AZ. Today we're going to talk a little bit about thematic maps. So let's just start out by comparing general reference maps and thematic maps, right? A general reference map you're probably a little more familiar with. It's what you're generally going to see if you're using your phone or say the screen in a car for navigation, trying to find your direction to some place, right? Compare that to a thematic map, which is presenting a specific theme, right? And we'll get into that. Let's cover a little bit about general reference maps, right? So these can also be called general purpose or location maps, but these maps are going to show the natural and human-made features of a place, right? So we're looking at this map here of Grand Canyon National Park. We can see the park boundaries itself. We can see the boundaries of surrounding national forest area. I can see some highways in there, the Colorado River, even an airport, right? So this is a location map representing the location of those features. These can also represent political boundaries, such as what we see here, looking at the different states in the country of Mexico. And again, they could be used for transportation, right, to show streets, highways, different features. So again, in this map, we're looking at highways leading into the Phoenix metropolitan area. And we can also see green polygons there representing national forest areas and brown polygons representing Native American reservations. So again, there's no interpretation or analysis being displayed in these maps. They're just strictly showing the location of objects. So let's compare that to a thematic map, right? A thematic map is a map that focuses on a specific theme or phenomenon. In this map we're looking at here, we're looking at wildfire risk across the West in the United States. So a thematic map can still include some features that are found in a reference map. For instance, here we can still see those state boundaries in the map, right? And that gives us a general awareness of what we're looking at. But a thematic map tells a story, right? And it does that by using specific attributes, which we've talked a lot about, to symbolize the data, right? So in this case, the attribute in this data layer is wildfire risk. And the way it's being symbolized is that areas in red and orange have a really high risk of wildfire, where areas of green and white, even up into the yellow, are going to be your low kind of to medium risk areas. Okay, now there's two main kinds of thematic maps, so let's talk about those real quick. And that's going to be a qualitative thematic map versus a quantitative thematic map. So a qualitative thematic map is going to show the where as opposed to the how much of something, right? So at this example we're looking here, we are looking at the official language spoken in each state of India, right? So there's no numerical data being displayed here. It's not showing us a percentage of A, B, or C languages spoken. It's just strictly saying this is the state boundary and this is the official language spoken within that state. And now we can compare that to a quantitative thematic map, right? So a quantitative thematic map shows the how much. Again, we're looking at the same theme here, being language spoken, but this map is showing us the percentage of the population with limited English-speaking abilities. And this area is focusing kind of on the southwest, looking mostly at Texas there. And what we can see is these polygons and kind of the tan to pink area are really low percentage. As you get to that darker gray, you're approaching 25% of the population. So again, a quantitative map is displaying numerical data. It's also showing the where, but it's really focusing on the how much. So there's a few different types of quantitative thematic maps, and so let's run through those real quick. We're going to look at isoline, dot distribution, choropleth, as well as proportional or graduated symbol maps. All right, well, let's talk about isoline maps. Iso being derived from the Greek isos, meaning equal. So these are line symbols that show a continuous distribution, right? One of the most common isoline maps that you'll see is a topographical map. So these lines on this map are indicating changes of elevation, right? So we can see that kind of circle coming towards a peak here. It's a little bit easier if you look at it in 3D version, but again, those are topographical lines indicating changes of elevation. And those lines represent that same numeric value, each line line represents the same elevation as it's progressing its way up that peak. Similarly, we could have an isoline map that depicts something like drive times, right? So in the middle of that green polygon is Phoenix Sky Harbor. And this is looking at average drive times on a Monday morning from Phoenix Sky Harbor, with the green line representing areas that could be reached within 5 minutes, that blue line representing areas that could be reached within 10 minutes from Sky Harbor, and that fuchsia kind of pink line, again, representing areas that can be reached within 20 minutes. So those lines all the way around representing that same kind of time value as far as how long it takes to travel from the airport. All right, so moving on to our next quantitative thematic map, let's talk about dot distribution. So in a dot distribution map, each dot or point is representing a feature, right? And those features are all the exact same thing, same numerical value, same meaning. So in this case, we're looking at a map representing the location of electric vehicle charging stations in Hong Kong, right? And dot distribution maps can be really handy way to show distribution, such as what we see here. So these are dots representing the distribution of the 19.6 million veterans in the U.S. During the time frame of 2012 to 2016. So crazy, 19.6 million dots on that map. But again, you can really start to see kind of the distribution of veterans across the conterminous U.S. Moving on to Chopleth maps, and these are maps that use colors to show how data changes from place to place. And they're showing that data according to a predefined boundary. So at this map that we're looking at here, that predefined boundary is the county level across the United States, right? And it's showing the confirmed cases of COVID-19 based on population defined by that county level. Similarly, in this map, we're looking at state level data, right? So this is the median household income in the United States in 2015, defined by that state level boundary. So Chopleth maps are really heavily used in media because they're visually attractive. They're a great way to get an interpretation of data out there, relatively easy to make. But all of that being said, you have to be careful because there is a lot of overgeneralization with Chopleth maps, right? Because you're defining something by an entire boundary at a state level, even a country level, or down to the county level, right? You're generalizing something based on that entire boundary. All right, and moving to our last type of quantitative thematic map, which is a graduated or proportional symbol map, right? And so this symbology in these type of maps varies based on proportions, right? So that can be represented as a gradient of color, such as what we see here with population density in the area surrounding Denver. So those darker blue, purple color are going to be the heavily, more densely populated areas. And as you go to that gradient towards the lighter colors, those are going to be less densely populated. Similarly, we can use the size of a point to represent this kind of data. So this is again looking at population level data in the Denver area, but each city is represented by a point, and that point is represented by a size based on the population of that city. So graduated proportional symbol maps give the where and the how much of the data that you're looking at. Let's do a quick review of all the maps that we just covered. So we started talking about general reference maps or location maps, right, which display the location of features, either natural or man-made. Then we moved into thematic maps, which display a specific theme or phenomenon. We talked about two different kinds of thematic maps, being qualitative maps, which show the where on a map, and quantitative maps, which show the how much, right? Quantitative maps include some kind of numerical value associated with the data. We talked about isoline maps, which are equal lines of continuous distribution, such as those lines that represent topography on a map. We used the example of charging stations for electric vehicles in Hong Kong, and as well as the distribution of veterans in the United States to discuss dot distribution maps. Chopleth maps use varying colors to display data changes, and graduated or proportional symbol maps have a symbology that varies based on proportions. Let's end this video by discussing one more thematic map. We'll hop around the map and we'll talk about a few factors that are important to include in any map really, but some that are especially important with a thematic map. Let's start with the map title. A well-titled map will give the audience a clear idea of what they're looking at on a map. Right, so this title lets us know that we're looking at U.S. drought conditions in July of 2021, which is important because giving that time frame lets us know that we're talking about July of 2021, right? We're not talking about drought conditions in 1985. Next, let's move to the bottom left corner and we'll talk about the legend. So a legend uses the same symbology which is displayed in your map to let a map viewer know what that symbology means, right? So in this instance, the legend is letting us know that those varying colors are depicting different intensities of drought. A good feature to include on any map is a north arrow. Most maps are generally oriented so that north is facing up, but that's not always the case. And a north arrow lets the audience orient themselves to the layout of the map content. The scale bar and scale text are less meaningful in a map of this scale because it's covering the whole contiguous United States, right? But with a smaller scale map with less obvious or no areas of reference, these items can provide valuable information to the map audience, and you can actually use them to take real measurements. So those are just a couple of the basics that you should try to include on any map, right? A title, a legend, perhaps a scale bar or scale text, and a north arrow. These are going to let your map viewers really understand your map a lot better. That's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed that and it was a little bit helpful, helped you understand a little bit more about what a thematic map is. Wanted to at least provide a couple of examples so we get that point across, right? Don't get wrapped up in all those different names and what each name means as far as how it's expressing data on a map. That's not terribly important right now. The main point we wanted to get across is that thematic maps focus on a specific theme, and we can use attributes associated with data to symbolize that data on a map in a way that makes it really clear to our audience what we're trying to display on a map.